Hey all, welcome to another stream. We will be starting in a few minutes, just a few minutes. Yeah, and topic for today is Go Fiber Web Framework. So basically in this one I will be going over more like in tutorial style. So we will be having step-by-step topics, and for each session, for each step, we will implement this part, and then maybe explain this a little, and then move on to the next topic. So final goal will be what we did in previous live streams. So basically get to the point when we have full CRUD endpoints, create, read, update, delete endpoints. So in terms of live stream, so I will be, my plan is I start with a topic. Let's say for this one, I finalize this topic, and then at the end of each section, if there is any question in the stream, I will be answering this question and then moving on to the next one. In terms of how to use this tutorial, let me move to another page. So let's also move title here. Yeah. So in terms of how to use this tutorial, I will also include for YouTube, I will also include topics and time codes. So basically you will be able to see to like jump between chapters and then watch only specific parts. So like, I mean, it should be easier for like in terms of learning purposes. Yeah. So one more thing, in terms of follow-up materials, when this is published to the YouTube, like when this stream ends, I will do some modifications in terms of descriptions and all this, and include most recent follow-up links and learning resources, because I also plan to publish like more step-by-step tutorial or course for the same framework. So make sure to check descriptions. So for now, let's get started. So first one, let me also open another window so I can put time codes. Just a moment, we will start in a second. Kurban Ali Hasanli liked your stream. Thank you very much. If you, by the way, as I mentioned, if you have any question, you can always ask in chat, and at the end of each chapter, as I mentioned, I will answer these questions. And in terms of timeline, time-wise, probably I will stream for another 40-50 minutes. So it's like relatively, it's a smaller, shorter stream. Like basically, when we are done with all these topics, we will close the stream. So now what I'm doing, I'm on another screen. I want to open, so for Twitch, there is a very nice feature where you can put like mark timeframes. And later I use it for video editing. Stream summary, no. Okay, so I will do the same also for YouTube. So while we are in the stream, I will mark this time codes, and I'm now seeing where I can. Okay, so I have I have on a smaller window our current time. So we are 9 minutes from the start. So let's say, yeah. So maybe let's highlight this time one more and put timer for this. It's 9 and 40. So how to use this tutorial? First of all, in the description you will have all time codes, so you can jump between chapters. And probably I will re-upload the same video with more compact, so there is no additional thing, no additional topics in terms of like stream questions and all this, if you have any. And in the description you will also have some follow-up materials. So this is how you use this course. Also, additionally, you will need to go to this repository, so we will use this repository as a starting point. I will also share frameworks website, so we will get started with this framework actually. So this is how you use it. So now let's move on. If you don't have anything related to chat or stream, let me just double check. Yeah, so let's now get to our first topic, Fiber web framework itself, and time mark for this is 45. Okay, so Fiber Go web framework. So this is something we were checking in the last streams. This is one of the web frameworks I am planning to use for Go web frameworks, my Go web frameworks project. I'm also taking notes on this website. For now, it is almost the same as this repository. But plan is not only Fiber, but also other frameworks. So basically this repository should be your entry point. In terms of Fiber, this is one of them. And here I already have some part of the source code. So if you want to check, and I believe I already have like API implementation for CRUD endpoints. We will be doing the same, but step by step. So how to get started with this one? So let me go back and we will start now with a new project. I will keep source code step by step. So we will now move to the terminal and add like folder for step 1, which is like I need to keep this timecodes. So 56. Okay. So what I will do, I will get the latest version of the project. First, I will check my current state. It's clean, so I will make sure that I have the latest version. Yeah. So, and in terms of structure, here on the repository, we have folder step by step. And here we can see all different frameworks and then where they are in terms of step. For Fiber, we will have 2 steps now. First one is initial project, and then we will have CRUD endpoints specifically for Fiber. So what I am doing now, let me move to the step-by-step folder. Check what we have. So I will add one more for Fiber, move into this directory. And I want to keep it same as others, so maybe let's open it here. I use Visual Studio Code for editing, just in case. So I want to see how I want to use the same folder names within each framework. So it's gonna be step 1 initial project. Okay. Step 001 init project. So we need to have one more directory, which is step 001. Okay, 001 initial project. So basically, in your case, you can use any directory, any empty directory. And first thing we will need to do is initialize our Go application. I will do this by executing go mod init, and our will be demo app. I use the same naming for all other frameworks. Okay, so this is all like root of the repository, but we also have separate for Fiber. At the moment, we only have Go mod. There is nothing more, nothing much here. And first thing I will do, I will add server.go. This will be our entry point. Okay. And what we will have here is we will initialize our package, import our framework, which is Fiber, and yeah, and start writing its code. So let me start package main. For now, let's just print something on the screen. So I will do main, and so let's me check zoom. So if it is visible on the screen. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, so print, we do hello world, and in a second we will do the same with fiber. So when I save, I automatically get imports. So, and now we can actually try to run this one, go run this directory, and we will have our hello world. So next thing I need to do is import fiber, and I believe this should work. And for this I will do go get fiber v2. So we have our fiber, and then we can use the same path to import our fiber framework. So I will do like this and import. Okay, and here, so with fiber, to get started with a framework, we need to initialize an application, a fiber application. So I will do like app fiber.new. And now what I want to do, I want to have an endpoint which will return hello world as a string, and then we will turn it to maybe to JSON. So what I will do here, so since we have this application, one thing we need to do is to register an endpoint. So we will have get endpoint on the root path. So this is our URL basically. And then I need to provide handler function, which will process any request to this endpoint. So for Visual Studio Code, we'll do generate automatically part of it. So this is what we need to have. In this function, we get context as a parameter, and this is basically has all we need for our URL for processing this request. And what we said, we want to return a string, send string, and it will be hello, let's say fiber. So now we have this endpoint, and one last thing that we need to do is to initialize or start this application. So let me do this. In fiber, to get this started, we can do listen and provide port where we want to run this application. So it will be 8080, which is always default for all other frameworks as well. Like, I mean, in this repository, within this repository. And let's now run this and see what's happening. Okay, so we have this fiber application running, and I can go here and try to check it. So when I go to localhost 8080, we have this hello fiber. But since in this course we will be operating with JSON mainly, so let's now convert it to the JSON, right? So let me put timecode for this. It will be 1910, let's say. So now let's take this endpoint and just try to return a JSON. For this, we also have kind of another method for this, which will take our object and convert it to the JSON. So for object part, I will use let me show very simple object. Actually, for now, we can also initialize this object here. Let's say we have another type, JSON text response. We will delete this in a second, but just for the sake of the example, Here we will have a message which will be string. Okay, and this is what we want to return, let's say, as part of this this example. And here what we can do, let's comment this one and say return C JSON, and we will have JSON text response, and the message going to be the same: hello fiber. Yes, save. Let's go back and restart this application and try to check here. Okay, so now we have the same text response, but as a JSON, and difference will be if I go to the network and restart this request. I will see, I hope it's visible on the screen. Yeah. So I will see a content type as a JSON, and this is done by this method. By the way, since it's open source, we can check all the methods, right? And here what is happening, like, I mean, I don't want to do the deep dive, but one thing that we see that JSON also does for us, besides the serialization part. So we have this JSON, right? So we do convert, like we do set content type to the JSON. Okay, so I think this is also done. In next part, we will do CRUD endpoints. So before I mark this timecode also, let me just, so I want to keep this step 1 as simple as possible. So it's initialization of the project and returning a JSON or text. So now what we can do, we can move back one folder up. Now we have only one folder, right? Read, update, delete. So let's start. Let me mark this point here. So it will be 23 and 10. And now we can start with this one. So for this, I will move to our another folder, newly introduced folder. And by the way, I need to mark it properly. So it's step 2. Nice. So I will move to step 2. Yeah, step 2, CRUD API. So we have the same folder, and I need to open it separately because in a previous one we had, yes, cool. Okay, and here let's close step 1 so we don't confuse it with each other. So to start with step 2, I will need to make one addition, which is basically I need to introduce our storage layer, and for this actually we need to, like, let's follow this structure here. So before we talk about data storage and then shared code, let's just see what we are building, because let's put our goal, with our task, let's say, and for this I will move to the Postman. Basically what we are building here, let's say it's our API specification. So we want to have a few API endpoints. First one is get request on /entities URL, which will return a JSON for a specific type. So we will discuss about this type in a second, but this is our first request. We want to call with get method this endpoint and get JSON representation as a list, so list of some objects. Second one, also get request, also /entities, but this time with ID. So we want to provide ID of the entity and get JSON representation of the single item, single entity. Next one, this one is a post request to the /entities endpoint with some input parameter, which will be JSON, right? And this JSON has type, name, description, and we want to take this input and save in our storage. So this is our third endpoint. one more. So this one is for updating. Let's say we want to update entity ID 10 and change name or description. So this is how we will do this. Next one is delete. For delete, what we will do, we will call delete with delete method, this endpoint / entities and ID of the entity which we want to delete. And as a message, if it is successful, we will get entity deleted. But additionally, which I will demonstrate later, additionally, we will also have some error handling. Let's say if you are getting an entity which is not in our storage, we want to get 404, saying that we don't have this entity. So this is our specification, which I forgot to put timecode. But now let's discuss about data storage and shared code. So since for all these operations we need some data layer so we can store or get these items, we will use shared code for this. And what I mean by shared code, since we will have multiple frameworks and multiple steps, I don't want to repeat a part which is responsible for storage. That's why let me show this. In the root directory of the repository, we have this package folder, and in this package folder we have another Go application, another Go module with our model, like data model. There is one entity structure, it's a structure type with ID, type, name, and description. ID, name, and descriptions, it is a string properties, string fields. And then we have another property or field, which is entity type. And here we have list of the, like, it's kind of enum. It's enum endpoint, enum property, and values can be one of these constants. So we have person, company, place, book, movie, and etc. etc. So also in the same folder we have storage.go, and this is storage.go is in memory database, let's say. So here we can let me show methods. Here we can add new entity or update or get a given one, like by ID, list entities, and also delete entity by ID. You can also check implementation. For example, by the way, for each storage, we will have also initialization, where we can propagate some dummy data. For example, let's say if we want to do list, we want to have some data and then we want to convert them to JSON. So we have like some dummy data, let's say. So in terms of adding, we will take a given entity, an instance of the entity object and entity type. We are using mutexes here to avoid data racing. So if we add entity at same point of time, for example, we don't generate the same ID, for example, and avoid data racing, for example. So if everything is successful, we will add this to our in-memory list. It's kind of slice. It's a slice actually, right? So let me see. Yeah, it's a slice, and we will keep all this in our memory, as I mentioned before. Update is very similar. Instead, we also check for some validation. So if we don't have ID, we don't know what to update, so we will return an error. If we have this ID, we will find this in our list and update our item with a provided new value, which is pointer to entity type. If no error, we will return nil. If there is error, we also have some error types. You can check it here. So for known situations like already exists, ID not provided, entity itself not found, or we are doing paging and giving page number is out of range. So we will also talk about this one, the paging one. So I don't want to go to each implementation. One interesting point is paging, so you can check it here. When we do list, we need to provide page number and page size. So we don't let's say, and this is a restriction, so we don't get hundreds of entities at once. We do some paging. So this is the main point here. Yeah, so this is our data storage and shared code, and in a minute we will start with this part. Okay, let's get started again. So let me put timecode. It's at 31. It's actually 32. So let's start with our first endpoint implementation, which is CRUD, which is list. So we will call, as I showed here, this is our first endpoint. We will go call with get this endpoint / entities. And we expect to get a list of the objects, list of these objects, like this entity objects. And to start with that, let me go back to our step 2 folder. So what we need to do in Fiber web framework, we can actually, so we can actually group. Have a group for, let's say, if it's all entity objects, we can group them as a one URL group, and then have different like post, get, and update endpoints differently. So let me start with that. So here, what I will do, just a moment. So what I will do here, since our entity group called entities, so I will introduce this group, entities API, let's say, and this is going to be app dot group, and group will start with /entities. This will be how we will group all these endpoints. And then later I can use, instead of like, if you notice here we use app.get. But now since I have another group, I can say entities API dot get. And now when I say root, this means this one. So this /entities / is this URL. So let me remove it from here. And we will actually put all of them in a different function. So I will have entities list. And let's create this entities list function. We already know that we get this context, right? So it's going to be fiber dot ctx, and we have an error to return in case of any error, and now we can return an empty JSON because we also have one more thing to finish. So I will just say for now send string. This one is of course not we want to create, but just for now. Let me start. So this time I will start in Visual Studio Code, which we can do here. So you can go here and say run and debug, and this will run currently selected file. Let's hit this endpoint. So this is get and entities. So I'm using Postman for this. but you can do the same with curl, for example. So this is what we already we actually provide. Just for a second, you can also run this test by curl localhost 8080 entities, and this will return you this this response. Okay, so now we need to return this list of entities, but as we know, this is in our shared code, so somehow we need to import this shared code in our project. And for this I will need to go back, go here, and do some magic. So replace. You can copy paste this from here. Let's take any of existing projects. So this is what we are going to do. And basically what we are doing here, we are saying that we have dependency on this package, which is available on this address. I have another video explaining this in, if you check my YouTube, it's called Go mod replace. So if you search by Go mod replace, you will find it. So this is basically like we are replacing a package, our external dependency, with some local folder. So let me take this and put here. But we will need to fix our relative directory. So this directory doesn't exist. And if I am not mistaken, we need to go 2 steps up. Let me see. Step by step. We are now here, step 2, right? So it's going to be 1 up, right, 2. Let's see. And now we take this one and say we have dependency on this. Oh, not here. Well, let's move to our, so this is our main project. And now we are in step 2. So what I will do now, okay, I made a mistake. So we need to fix this one here. Okay. So let's go back to our project. So this is our project, step 2. And I move back here and say I have a new dependency, which is here. And of course we also need to do go get. So I will do also here. I need to move to step 2. Is that correct? No. Step by step 2. Yeah. And we do go get this package here. So we need to do this once. We will start with a list endpoint, and then for other endpoints we don't have to do this. If I didn't make any mistake, so we should get this. Maybe I think I did a mistake by, we need to include one more step up, right? Let's see. Okay, so replacement doesn't have one. Okay, so let's do this. Can you do it now? Okay, so now it's imported. And if I go back, I can actually start using this here. Which I will do by having, so as you remember, we have initialization here, right? So we need to start a new instance of this storage in memory storage, and then initialize it. And by doing so, we will have all this dummy data, so we can load this data and then return it as a JSON. So I will move back to the step 2. And say we have entities, repository. Yeah. So actually, for now, let me do this. For just, I want to show this first as a simple. So package dot new entity repository, and if we do this entity repository dot init, so this will initialize a new instance. And then we will have, by init, we will have all this data also loaded in the memory. So we don't have to add we can just get list and show JSON. And now what I will do, I will move it to the make it variable. So okay, so let's do the same. So type is package dot. I will set interface type. So later, if we change this, we don't have any, like, we don't have to change. Like, let's say we change this entity repository from in-memory to MySQL, for example. I will not have to change this part. I can just change initialization part because interface will be same. And now I can remove this one here and say just when we start application, do initialization. So we get all objects in our memory. Yeah, we can remove this one. We don't need this. And then we have our echo application. And actually now we can start implementing our list endpoint. So first, what I need to do, I need to get entities, right? I will use this variable here, global variable, which is entities repository list. For now, we will say first page, and page size is 10. So later we will put this in page in query string, but for now I will put it here. And then let me see if we have any error handling here. Yes, we also return an error, so let me also fix this one. So we go back and say error. And for now, we don't want to do error handling for now. We will check all these errors at the end. And actually, we will also have paging, right? So let's also introduce paging at the end, paging. And we will think about this, but for now, I will ignore these errors. And simply what we do, we say return JSON entities. We know for sure this works because it's an in-memory, like there is very low probability of failing. But in real world situation, you won't do this. You will check for this error. You will also check for this input parameters because we want to get paging done. So that's why we are now skipping a lot of parts. I will start it here because it's much easier, much simpler. And now let's see if I go here. Again, it's Postman. You can use also curl for this. Okay, and now we see we get some data, right? So we have a list of entities, 9 items. We can also test this by changing page size. Let's say we do 4, restart our application. And call this endpoint again. And now we get 4 items, right? So now what I'm thinking, let's actually, since it's our one of the main endpoints, let's actually do paging part also right here. So I will change our topics a little. So let's say we are done with list endpoint, right? So now we are here. Let me start first with error handling. So if we don't get list of entities, no, let's do paging first. So let me put a time mark 45. Okay, so for paging, what we say that actually let me first show how we will do paging. So our paging will work like this. We call this endpoint and then provide additional parameter called page and then page number. So this is how we're gonna implement this paging. And for this one, for getting this page, we will need to use, we will get it from provided parameters, URL parameters or query parameters. And there is a method in Fiber and we can use query. Let me double check what type of we get a string, so we don't have error handling here. So and then we will need to convert this string. So I will do page. So our and there is also default value, right? So our default value will be, yeah, it's optional. Should I provide? Yeah, we can do 1, right? So by default, let's say we get 1, which is also a string, of course. So we do page as a string, and now I think, yeah, we get here we get integer. So we will need to convert. So we have page and error in case if we have any error, and we will need to convert this, and I will use strconf. Oops, not this. And I always confuse this, but it's saying, I think it's a toy, yeah. Which will be, we will provide page as a string, and expect that here we will get page as integer. And now we need to check, first of all, we can use page already here, right? And let's for now just ignore just for a second this error part and see how it works. And kind reminder that we have page size as a 4, right? So let me run this application again. Yeah, let's use in Postman. Of course, you can also use browser to test all this. So page. So this is our first page. It starts with 1, 2, 3, 4. So we don't have any more objects. And now I can provide page 2. Now it starts with 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And I think we also have page 3. And let's see what we have for page 4. We have empty. Okay, so kind of it works. There is also, of course, some improvements needs to be done. But first, let's start with error handling. So actually, in this case, our error handling only, we need error handling only if someone says, like, I don't know, it's not for, but for AST, right? So this is for us. Let me see, do I get any error here? Okay. Yeah, since we are ignoring, this is why it is not failing. And also, like, what's happening here? Actually, I don't know what's happening here. Is it 0? Yeah, I think it is. It defaults to 0, right? So it defaults to 0. That's why we get null. And why it defaults to 0 is, so we get error, like when I do like this, AST, we get error. And we are ignoring this error and then right away using list. And since it's errored, here we have default value for integer, which is 0. But let's fix this. So if we say, if we get any error, we want to default to 1, which is basically what we do here, but with string, right? So now we will do the same with integer, if this is not. And we set to 1. So in this case, yeah. So in this case, whenever we have any mistake in our paging parameter, we will return our first page. And to check this, I need to restart. Okay, so we restarted, and now we can try. So let me try another page, like let's say 3 AST. So this is not correct, and we default to 1. So, and we can see it here, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our first page, considering that we have 4 as a page size. So now let's also move this 4 to global variable, so we can change this whenever we want, right? Page size. For now, actually, this is not required. It's not mandatory because we use it only in one place, but it's just, yeah, I think it's just better to have it here and then use it here. Okay, so now when we have page parameter, we parse it, we do kind of some error handling. For now, we don't return anything to user as a HTTP status code, which we will do in a second. And now we can actually do some very kind of very basic error handling by using this one here. But first, let me demonstrate you this error case. Since we are ignoring this error, we don't see it now, but let's say I want to access page 10. I don't want to get this null. I want to return something a bit more meaningful. So clients using this API, they have some kind of science how to operate in these cases, right? And let me explain what I mean. So when we have any error from list, and let me show this list function here. So this is our list function. So if we have any parameter, page parameter, which is out of range, we actually return this error, entity out of range. So I want to handle this error and return something a bit more, as I mentioned, more meaningful to the user. And the way we can do this is we will need to get this error and do some checks based on this error. So first, actually, let me put this in timecode so we don't forget this. So now I am talking about this one. So now we will do proper error handling for this endpoint, and we will start with this list endpoint, which I just showed. Like I will be repeating. So whenever we have a parameter which is out of range, we want to handle this error properly and return it to the user. And the way how I already actually started this, so we will do get this error and then check if this error is not empty. So now we will need to do some kind of checks. First of all, let me also show you another model which we have in our shared package. So here we have text response. So actually we can use this to also return message, like error message. So first, what I want to do, I want to use this here. So this is going to be error message, which is package.text response, and our message will be errors text. And now we want to return this error to the user. And for this, first what we need to do, we need to say that our status is error. And for now I will use server error. Actually we can use also something more meaningful. Let me see. One of the 400s. Maybe bad request. Let me see. Request entity too large. Okay, maybe bad request. Forbidden, not found. Yeah, actually not found. Maybe. Yeah, why not? Right. Let's return not found. So we are looking for a page which is not present, right? Of course, we need to do a bit better by checking what kind of error we are getting, right? So if it's out of range, yes, maybe not found makes more sense. But if it's actually like something wrong with database, which can happen with actual like MySQL or Postgres, in this case, probably returning 500 would be more reasonable. But for now, I will say not found. And then I will also provide our message so people can see what is happening. Again, if it's actually something wrong with our server side, in this case, we will need to check with error type. For now, I'm skipping this part. So let me restart this application. And now let's see what we get. Yeah, entity out of range, and our status code is not found. And now we kind of handling some of the errors that we can get on the list endpoint. Okay, so let's let's error handling and not found page. Okay, so let me take a few minute break, and then we will continue with implementation of get endpoint. Okay, so let's put this time mark here, 57. Okay, so get endpoint, and let's first see what we want from this get endpoint. So we want to provide an ID, so this is something new for us, right? And also search this by this ID in our database, and then return this single entity. This time it's single entity, this is not a list. And for now, for this one, we will need to do something a bit differently, just a little, not much. First, let's start with this part. So we need to introduce another endpoint, right? Which is also like root of these entities, but this time with a named parameter, which is ID. So this is our named parameter, and we say that if we get any requests on this endpoint, call entities get, which we will be introducing in a second. So here we do entities get. So this time it's not a query, this time it's a parameter, right? And parameter's name is ID, right? This is our entities ID, and we also have default as previously. So we can also say, actually, we don't want to have any default, right? So we can just leave it empty. So this is going to be entity ID. So one difference here is, for our storage, actually a get works by string, because our entity type has ID as a string, right? So we don't need to now do any kind of type conversion. So we can remove this part, but we will need to do some checks, right? So let's say entity. And why we need to do some check? Because we might get an ID which is not present in our storage. So we will need to see this. So what we say here, we say we search for this entity by this ID, which we are accepting as a URL named parameter. In case of any error, show this error message. Stats code, let's say it's also not found. Again, we can do some more checking on this error type, but for now we are skipping it. And then we are converting this error message to JSON. In case of success, we are doing the same, but for JSON, for this entity. So let's try this. Okay, and now we can actually run this test. So first I will start with an existing entity, right? We don't have this entity in our database. And now let's, wait a moment, why we don't get 404? So I was expecting 404. Yes, because our database, let's see what it does. So, we're returning nil in case of if we don't find. which is, I mean, questionable, arguable. We can also say, like, if we didn't find, we return not found, which would make more sense, right? Let me think. This was a pointer. Okay, for now, if I change this, this will also change behavior of other applications, so we have some dependency here. But ideally, like, we could also say, if we don't have this ID, we return error that we didn't find. But for now, what I will do, I will just change our behavior a little. So in this case, actually, we can say here we are doing error handling, like in a sense, like it's internal server error, because we usually will not hit this point here. And not found, we can actually check by checking entity. We say if it's nil, if it's empty. We do almost the same, or maybe not. We just say C status fiber not found, right? Not found. That's not found. Okay. Oh, I need to return? Okay. Error maybe. Yeah, the thing is, we need to return some text. Okay, what I will do for now, I don't want to send stats. Oh, okay, fiber dot not found. So this will be our status without any message. We don't send any message now this time. And what we do, yeah, so this will also exit from function, so we are good to go, and then we will return entity itself. So let me start this application again. And let's go back to Postman. Oops, did I do any mistake? And is nil, so this should be nil. Okay. Okay, so now we send not found. That's good. Okay, so let's move on, but actually let's also try if we get, yeah. So now we get also normal, and if you have any mistake, we don't send anything. Okay, so this is what we wanted to have. And now actually get to another endpoint, which will be adding new items. Create endpoint, which is 1 minute, 1 hour already. Okay. 3, 4, okay. So for create endpoint, we need to do also something a little different than usual. So first of all, we will use another method, which will be entities API post method. We will accept post on a root of our group, and function will be entities, let's say add for now. So now let's double check our specification. For adding, first of all, we get post method. This is first difference, and then we also expect some JSON input. So we need to check payload, this input, convert it to our object, entity object, and then save it to the database. And for this, what I will do, I will go back. First, let's introduce this function. Did I put it as add? Yes. Just add fiber.context error. For now, it's more or less similar. So first, we need to define our empty object, so which will be package dot and this is not error but error. So first we introduce this, and then we will need to find a way which will say to framework that we want to map our incoming body or payload to this object, so parse this object, right? And for this, in Fiber we have c.body parse, and here we need to provide a pointer to our entity. And of course we need to check if everything is wrong, is okay. So by doing check here, so in case of if we cannot bind, cannot map, right? So we will need to return some kind of error saying like what is wrong actually. So first, actually we can copy paste this part. So in terms of status code, I am not sure a bit. Maybe we can try something new, like bad request, for example. So status will be bad request, and we will return our message. In case of success, let me just for now return the same object, which is context.json and this entity. Okay, so let's try this out. So now it's running. So this is our endpoint. I'm doing post. I don't need to provide ID because our storage layer will generate this ID. And let's see. So we don't have ID actually, but let's see for now what's happening. So I expect, since we have page size 4, it will be on page 3, I guess. No, okay, yeah. Actually, what's happening? We are accepting this, right? We are parsing, but we are not saving, right? So that's why we don't have ID. But at least parsing part went okay, successfully. So maybe let's now try sending something incorrect. So type name, let's say. I'm sending wrong property name. And yeah, so we don't get actually mistake, we don't get error, but just this type won't be mapped properly. So body parser. So we don't have any error here. What happens if all of them is incorrect? Let's see. Yeah, we don't. Again, we get 200. Okay, so for now what we can do, we can accept that we get this this object, and let's actually move on and save. Try to save now the same. And because like what can let's say, let me actually check if we do any kind of checks here. Yeah, we are like we don't have any validation layer saying like, for example, if name, for example, is empty, we don't want to save, or type is empty, we don't want to save. So this is something we can introduce later. So for now, let me do this. So if, yeah, so we don't need any if actually. We say entity, right, and then error, or just entity, I don't remember. Just error. Okay, we say our entities repo add, and we are adding entity, right? Yes, and we check for this error, and probably I will return this, or just the same. Let's put just the same for now. Okay, what you don't like? Non-new variable on left side. Yeah, sure. So this error. And now we should be okay. So now we don't just accept this, but also should save. And we will know this by ID. So if we generate ID, then it is saved properly in our in-memory storage. So this is our new object, and if I do a list, let's try a list first. So now on last page I have 2, and we can also get this by its own ID, which is 10. Okay, so let's move to update part or edit API. Okay, so edit actually is very similar to adding. So we will have most of the steps very similar, and actually we can also use the same function, maybe even the same method for this. Like for example, we say like post is for creating and also modifying, and how you know this is if there is any ID present, then you are modifying. If there is no ID, you are adding. For sake of simplicity and also like trying something out, something new, I will say I will put on this, I will put it on put method and say edit. I want to keep the names very similar to each other, so I will say update, actually update, entities update, and here we can just copy paste from this one. Again, you can refactor this and make it one function. This is also okay. Update. So everything will be same, right? So we will get object. One difference that we can actually make, but I think it's also done in our storage layer. Let me check this. So on our storage layer, hello, I see someone sending message, hello. So on our storage layer, when I go to update, yeah, we check by ID. So if we don't have this ID, we will return error. So this should be okay. Okay, let's try this out. Start application again. So now I will need to add new one. So let's add this. So we have 10, and then I will update just newly added object. So I will say I am updating entity number, ID number 10, and changing name and description by adding 1 at the end. So let's see. Wait a moment. Oops, yeah, we did a mistake, of course. So this is not add, this is update. Yes. And we will need to restart. Okay, let's add this object again. Just a kind reminder that we are using in-memory, so every time I restart, everything goes away. So I will, like with initial state. So I added, and then I will update the object. Let's see, so it's updated. And if I use any of these endpoints, I will get updated information. Yes. And we can also mark edit one done. So last one is delete, which is timecode is 14 and 45. Okay, so for delete, first, again, we need to introduce this endpoint, which will be delete and ID of the object we want to delete, right? So people don't have to send all the payload, they can just send ID of the object, and we say delete. And this delete is actually very similar to get endpoint in terms that we are relying on the same input parameter, ID, right? So, and here we do not get, but delete, and we return only error. Right? So, and let's see. So we are trying to delete. Let's fix method name. delete. So we are trying to delete. If you have any error, we say, yeah, kind of internal server error, or we can just say bad request for now, bad request. But if it is successfully deleted, we don't have any entity to return. So I will return message one, right? So error text response and say message entity deleted. Is it correct? So let's restart. Go to postman. This is our delete endpoint. So like we will get something like this. First I will try to delete number 2. Entity deleted, good. And if I get first page, I should have ID 2, right? We can also try by adding a new item. Really? Entity already exists. How? We didn't restart or what? Entity post 3 2 add entities person. What is happening here? Entity already exists. Let me check this. Add post and ID is entity ID. Oh, we have a mistake here. Okay, the thing is, I am generating IDs based on count, which is wrong because if I deleted one object and I am adding another one, this won't work. That's why let me fix this. So here, for now, I will use very simple fix. Later I will think about this. So I will not add 1, I will add, let's say, 100. So it doesn't mix with our existing objects. But again, this part needs to be fixed. It's not a right way of doing this. But for now, our goal is to fix, like to add delete endpoint. So let me run this again. Okay, so we will do exactly the same. So now we list first page 1 2 3. This is okay. So there's also 4. Again, we delete second one. We get the second one, and then let's try to add again. So this time we should have something more unique. Yeah, so 108. Again, this is not the like permanent fix, but for now this will work. And let me get this same object. It will be on last page. Yes. And we can also delete this one. Right. And we can actually check this by here. So now we have this object, and when we delete, we shouldn't have this object. Okay. So this kind of works. We found also error in our shared code, which I will fix later. You can check this on the repository later on, but I think for now this is all. And let me put some final words for now, right? So final words, which is at 20, right? Okay. So actually my final words will be like, so I will just in a second, let's actually do this together. So I will push all these changes here. So we can do it right away. So I will add all the steps, fiber, step 1 and 2. Step 1 was let's also push. So step one was, so this is all source code now here, so you can check anytime. This was our empty project with some JSON endpoint, right? So we return some simple JSON. And then in step one, we have a full implementation for an example CRUD API. So let me see. Yes, so you can check the source code, run it locally, and also do modifications. I suggest you do this, like you practice on this, right? And make sure to like follow this repository for future steps. I think for now I will stop here. So I will also include all these timecodes for the video, so we can anytime jump to any of these chapters or topics and watch from there. Maybe one difference will be we will not have this API specifications. I will check this later locally. But for now, that's all. Thanks everyone for watching.